Hello, my name is Mike Florin, and I'm the owner of Low Cost Mortgage. Today's your weekly update for February 25th, 2025. Now, there's three main topics we're going to talk about. The first topic, rates. Rates have been coming down 7 of the last 8 weeks. That's a pretty good downward trend. In fact, we're seeing it move slowly down. I'm going to pop open a chart and draw a line. Visualizations are great, but you can see where we got that good generalistic trend. Now, Monday this week, they were pretty low, and today even lower. So 1 week out of those last 8 weeks, it came up a little bit and right back down. And the main reason for that was an inflation number came out. And this was 2 weeks ago. And that inflation number came out and showed 4% or so inflation. I forget the exact number. But then rates skyrocketed. The next day, the stabilization or perceived stabilization happened. And then rates came right back down again. What I mean by perceived stabilization is there's pressures in rates up and down. And we talk about pressure all the time. Well, if you have more downward pressure than upward pressure, you're going to see rates coming down. And that's what we're seeing for the last 8 weeks. Now, interest rate wise, that puts government right now, and I just locked a few of them, but government, VA and FHA, you're like right in the middle fives, and you're starting to tickle fours again. Low fives. Check it out, lcmloans.com/rates, run your scenario. Okay, you'll be able to see. Now remember, the rates are an eighth or so higher in that online search tool. You're going to see rates there that are higher than what you could actually get, okay? But that brings us to conventional. Conventional usually lags behind government in some ways, and in some ways it's faster. But government is typically 1% or so, a little less than 1% or so, lower than conventional. Well, conventional starting to pick up their descent too in rates. And so we got conventional is mid to low sixes-ish, depending on your scenario, and that's par, but you're also tickling high fives. Now, the rate update I sent out last Friday, which was a quick, hey, rates came down, rates changed, that was on Friday, and, home ready, home possible is high fives. Well, go search it, and then you're going to see again, where's it at? Well, it's right there. It's actually a little bit better. All right, topic number 2. I had a meeting with a real estate office on Monday, yesterday. And in that meeting, there was a question that popped up. And that was why is it that homes that are priced right at $400K or lower seem to move so fast? And there's really a very simplistic financial reason for that. And that is the following. If you have a house that is close to a military base, you have a major increase of demand in housing for those lower price points. And the main reason is BAH. BAH is the housing allowance that military people get if they're married or not, or if they're living off base. There's different calculations for it, but to really simplify it, BAH for an E4 and below is right around $2,200 a month. It's just shy of that. And if you're E5 and above, it's right around $2,300 or a little bit more than that, okay? That's per month. Most military people, and I used to be a military person, we all want, or priority is, the house payment to be as close to BAH as possible. Now, a few years ago, it was, I want the house payment to be BAH or under. That was a priority. What we've seen on the mortgage side in the last several months is, or actually the last year or so, whatever the BAH amount is, I'm okay with my payments a few hundred higher than that. So it's a shift. A few years ago, they wanted, military people wanted the house payment to be below the BAH amount. Recently, in the last year, military people want that payment or are okay with that payment. They don't want it, but they're okay with that payment being slightly higher than the BAH amount. Well, what does that mean? Well, a $400K loan at roughly 6%, now we're not there, we're below that, but I'm just assume really, really bad credit on VA or something's wrong and somehow they're at 6%, right? Well, if taxes and insurance are $150 a pop each per month, then your total payment in is going to be $2,650. And if it's a $400K loan at 5.5%, well, your total payment then is going to be right around $2,550. There's about a $100 difference per month between 6 and 5.5, something like that. Now, these are just close estimations, right? And this is total with taxes and insurance. We're assuming a lot of things. But with that being said, if your payment is 26 something or 25 something, but your BAH is 23 something, well, that means that 400K is your theoretical max if you're at E5 or E4 or E6. Now, this doesn't apply to 7s, 8s, and 9s. I mean, there's a lot less higher enlisted and officers in the military than lower enlisted, but the lower enlisted are going to be the core of that purchasing power. And that's one of the main reasons that below 400K has such a high demand. FHA, the FHA loan limit dictates where that demand starts to taper off. And FHA is $533,000. Now, affordability comes into it too, but in the end, 400K is that sweet spot also for people's mindsets of what they want for payment. 26, 2,500, maybe 2,700. Most people that are going to use a VA and FHA loan, they do not want a mortgage payment that is 300 grand. Or I'm sorry, $3,000. They don't want a payment that's $3,000 a month. Another point is, and David brought this up, one of my loan officers, he has seen that, or his perception of this, and I share the same perception too, and that is if you can get an okay house, good enough house, decent enough house, in a decent enough neighborhood, an okay enough neighborhood, and it's 400,000, people are going to jump all over that. The problem is you get down into the 350 range, you start to find a lot of houses that have a lot of problems. But as soon as you shift over a certain amount, 350, 360, whatever that looks like, you start to get houses that look substantially better. So you as realtors, you probably see this because you're seeing houses more than we are. We're seeing the finance side of it. But 400K, 410, 420, 380, 390, somewhere in that general threshold, you have a very high demand of buyers that's kind of their theoretical max. And that's kind of why you're seeing an increased demand at about 400 or below. And again, the exact numbers are going to change a little bit, but that's close to about that, okay? All right, last piece we're going to look at is third part, okay. There's a perception of rates. Now, we are hopefully continuing to see downward trend in rates over the next year or two. Now, there's going to be a theoretical bottom. That theoretical bottom is going to be government low 4s, conventional high 4s. Why? Because that's where we were before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, before the problems, before the muddling in the financial markets, government low 4s, conventional high 4s. With that being said, as we get closer to those numbers, you're going to start to see more and more buyers enter the market. Now, right now, it's a buyer's market. We all know that. If you have a buyer, you've got money. You just have to find them a house that's good enough, okay enough, in an okay neighborhood or good enough neighborhood, right? What's interesting about that is, as we transition over from a buyer to a seller's market or a market of neutrality, and that's where more and more buyers are going to enter the market, you're going to start to see costs start to increase. You're going to start to see things, and that's because that perception of rates. With the perception of rates, everybody thinks, oh, 7, 8%, that's a bad deal. I don't really want to buy a house. A lot of people backed out. And I know you realtors, you've seen that. We've seen that. Everybody has seen that. As the rates start to come down over the next few months, you should see a big increase of demand from buyers. Now, with that increase of demand, you're going to see more buyers hitting the market. More buyers hit the market, more people are competing, et cetera, et cetera. You know how that works. You got another effect for demand on housing. That's PCS season. Every house that's located close to a military base, Fort Carson, Colorado, JBLM, Fayetteville, you've got El Paso, Texas, Hood, Texas, Fort Hood. Those areas, and every area that has a military base, especially the Army, because the Army has the biggest headcount of all the military branches, if your house is close to an Army base, you will see an increase in home value because there's an increase in demand. It's kind of seasonal with the number of buyers that are being transferred. You get them from Colorado to Washington to Texas. PCS season rolls around. There's just a higher probability that more people are actually going to move from one base to another. It's called PCS season. So that also increases demand. And that increases demand on that 400K and below household price point, or low 4, or we'll call it low 4s and below, okay? That third point we're going to cover is selling points for realtors, and we're just going to quickly browse over this, okay? First is the perception of rates. When rates were in the high 6s and the 7s, and some lenders had them in the 8s, we were never there, but some people were. There's this perception of the rate is too high, I'm just not going to shop. So a lot of buyers they left the market. They're gone, right? Well, as rates continue to come down, as they should, as we're predicting, as pressure shows that it probably will, and I can't say absolute, but probably will, you're going to see more and more buyers enter the market. Well, more buyers enter the market, and then this market starts to shift from a buyer's market to neutrality to a seller's market. And that shift could happen within a few months. It could happen before you realize it's happening. So as the buyers are moving into the market, you should probably prep your current buyers to say, look, now would probably be a good time to buy. And one of the main reasons is there's less buyers right now. Rates are pretty decent. Yeah, they're going to downward trend. You can refi later, but at the same time, or maybe if they keep going down, but at the same time, as more buyers enter the market, there's going to be more competition. More competition means you overpay for your house. So that's a good argument to have, or a good leverage point against your buyers. For those of you that are realtors around military bases, you also have PCS season. And what that is that's a lot of military people that are in different bases, maybe JBLM in Washington and Fort Carson in Colorado, and you get a lot of transfers that happen in the springtime. And we call that PCS season. We get a lot of military families that are moving, and those military families, they need rentals. And nobody wants to live in base housing. They need rentals, they need houses to buy. That increases demand on housing. That happens every spring, all through most of the summer. And that also is going to increase demand as well. So as PCS season rolls around, and we're coming up soon to it, if you realtors have buyers that they want to jump in before that big heavy demand push starts to happen, they probably want to move sooner rather than later. We're going to talk temporary buy downs. I personally don't think they're great. They're a tool. The tool works sometimes, but we're seeing something interesting. Most of the offers that we're getting, most of the contracts that we're receiving have negotiated terms of seller concessions, and a big one is the temporary rate buy down, a 1.0 or maybe a 2.1. But a 1.0, we've seen a lot more 1.0s than 2.1s. And I think the main reason is everyone's anticipating being able to refi in a year. So I looked it up. We've got 75% of our deals that are coming in right now have some kind of provision for a temporary buy down, or they have a provision where the seller concession, which is quite significant right now, can go to things like a temporary buy down. So just FYI, that's another good leverage point. Those are the contracts we're seeing. Last point of the day for realtors. Us on the lending side, we need you to push your buyers to bring us documentation as fast as possible. If you're working with us, if you're working with another lender, does not matter. All lenders, all loan officers, all mortgages need documentation. The main reason that I see loans not get clear to close early, not close early or on time, the number one reason, borrower documentation. So, you as a realtor, if you keep pushing, keep reminding your buyers, hey buyer, make sure when the lender asks for something, you get it to them right away. Hey, call that lender up proactively, ask them, hey, do you need anything more? Okay? If you do that, if you tell the buyers to do that, we're already telling them that, but if you tell them that from your side, guess what? They have a higher probability of getting us what we need. And so what we've seen, or what I've seen, and the loan officers here have seen, is if we coach the realtor, hey, we're going to tell them to get documents in, can you remind them, poke them, push on them to get documents in? Everybody has a great time. Clear to closes happen fast. There's enough time to balance. It's stress-free buying. If the buyers are slow on documents, everybody hates the lender at the end of the day because you're late for your clear to close. You don't have enough time to balance quickly. Sometimes you have to push closing off by a day or so. And most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, borrower documentation. All right, realtors, now's that time to go out and find your buyers if you don't already have them. And if you do have them, they're on the fence, get them off that fence. Rates are coming down, inventory's plentiful. Now's that time to find your buyer and find some money. Anyways, have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.